So hello everybody, my name is Ludovic. I'm a professional drone pilot, and today I would like to share with you a recent experience I had. I was hired to film for the M+ Modern Art Museum in Hong Kong, and I was required to film with my FPV drone inside the museum to showcase the artwork, and the film had to look like one single take from beginning to end. It was a pretty crazy experience, mainly because I had to showcase multi-million-dollar artwork. The stress level was quite high. The technical challenges were quite significant as well. Today I'm going to share with you 5 key challenges that the team had to manage during the production of the film. However, before I start, 2 main things. First of all, please check out the film itself. You'll find it at the link in the description below. Second, I would like to thank the director and producer of the film, Edwin from Fallout Media, who made this project possible. And I would like also to thank the M+ Museum team, the marketing department in particular, who pushed for that FPV film from the beginning and who made everything possible. All right, so now I'm going to list 5 key challenges that the team had to deal with to produce that film. So the first challenge was to give the illusion that the film had been shot with one single take. And this was technically quite impossible to really do with one single take, because the drone had to fly over Hong Kong Harbor, then to fly through the front door inside the museum and onto the first floor. It had to showcase various galleries on the first floor, then fly up to the second floor through a mezzanine. Then the drone had to fly on the second floor through the art galleries, and then up through the roof, onto the garden and out to the ocean. So it was impossible to film with one single take. So we cut it into 4 main takes. So the first clip was the drone flying over the ocean and through the front door. The second clip was the drone flying on the first floor inside the galleries. The third take was the drone flying on the second floor, and the fourth take was the drone flying through the roof, out into the garden, and in direction of the ocean. When you do the math, you have 3 stitch points to manage. So the first stitch point happens at the entrance of the museum. And the trick is to use a mask transition to make believe that there is only one continuous shot. If you want to make it work, you need to really have the same speed at the end of the first shot and at the beginning of the second shot. You also need to be flying at roughly the same height, otherwise it won't work. The second stitch point is literally between the first floor and the second floor. And there is nothing special to the transition technique. The only thing we do is that the drone is facing a white wall for 2 to 3 seconds, or even less than that, maybe only 1 second. And as a result, you can just do a simple cut transition and it will look like one single shot. Here, the only challenge is that you need to be flying the drone roughly at the same speed between the end of the first shot and the beginning of the second shot. Last but not least, the third transition was probably the hardest. The main challenge was to make believe that the drone was flying through the sunroof. It's not really flying through the sunroof, we just fly the drone to the sunroof on the third shot and then take off from the top of the sunroof on the fourth shot. The third shot is basically done during daylight, and the fourth shot is done at sunset because this is what the client wanted. So we're cheating basically. The key challenge in making this transition interesting was to be able to have a color match between the 2 shots. So the second main challenge that the team had to deal with was a very bad video signal. So the museum we were filming in, the M+ Museum, has extremely thick walls. So the video signal doesn't go through, and as a result, you have a lot of signal breakup. The only way to really be able to fly around the drone through the galleries from a room to another is to have the pilot sitting on a wheelchair and just pushed by the crew behind the drone. So this is the wheelchair. So it's supposed to be piloting from here. And that's the monitor behind for the director. That was a very crazy experience, mostly because the crew had to push me around very, very fast because the drone was flying quite fast. And as a result, you have a lot of G-forces coming in. Essentially, when you are turning right with the drone, the crew is going to push you to the left, and hence pilot perception is really impacted, and it's very difficult to control the drone in those conditions. Challenge number 3, choosing the right gear. So here I gave 2 options to Edwin, the director, either using a Cinelifter style drone with a large size cinema camera, or using a lighter GoPro drone. At the end of the day, Edwin chose to go for a light GoPro drone because consequences in case of crash would be a lot lighter. So we used a traditional 3-inch Cinewhoop with the GoPro 8.
Okay, landing.
Why GoPro 8 and not a GoPro 9? Because first of all, the GoPro 9 is a lot heavier, and if you're using a traditional 3-inch Cinewhoop, it's not going to fly as well. But most importantly, the lighting conditions in the museum were good, but not great. As a result, we really needed a sensitive camera able to work well in low light, and the GoPro 8 works a lot better than the GoPro 9 in low light. Challenge number 4, flying next to very expensive artwork. So to give you a bit of background, the M+ Museum is a very big deal for the city of Hong Kong. It has been in construction for many years. It is awaited by many people. It is designed and built to be a great contender to amazing museums around the world, such as the Tate Gallery in London or the MoMA in New York. Needless to say, all the artwork which is inside is worth millions. And crashing on an artwork or even next to it is not an option. So here the position that we took with Edwin, the director of the film, was that taking your time is the best way to avoid a crash. The whole shoot was split into 4 days, and we had to shoot only 1 clip per day. At the beginning of each day, we would come in at least 1 or 2 hours before the actors came in, and we would test out the reception.
Signal's okay?
Signal was barely good enough, like barely. The idea was to ensure that the distance between the drone and the pilot in the wheelchair was always reasonable, and that the quality of the reception was always good, because if you have an increase in the latency or a decrease in the quality of the reception inside the goggles, there is a higher risk of crashing. Now, challenge number 5, lighting conditions. So here we're going to talk about GoPro settings. I'm not going to share with you my GoPro settings because, you know, I think you have many people on the internet that have shared their best GoPro settings for FPV. What I'm going to do is just tell you the specific changes that I have done to the settings for each clip, depending on the various challenges that the team was faced up with. In the first clip, the key issue was that the drone was essentially doing a transition from flying into bright sunlight to intense shade, and there was at least 4 to 5 stops of difference between the sunlight and the shade.
Cut.
So for this, we had to use auto exposure, which is something that I rarely do, but in this particular case, we had to. The other point that I would like to mention is that for this particular shot, we did not use an ND filter because in the shade, there was just not enough light to expose correctly with an ND filter. So as a result, the shot in the sunlight was actually very choppy because there was not enough motion blur. So the editing crew had to add some motion blur in post-production just to not have this choppy effect of, using a GoPro without an ND filter. So on the second shot, the main problem was that we did not have enough light. The rooms inside the museum were not really finished. We did not have the final fixtures, and there were some very dark areas inside the museum. The only way to manage this situation was to use a quite low shutter speed. We used 1/50th of a second. Those who are used to Real Steady Go stabilization software know that it's not really enough if you want to avoid dirty artifacts and motion blur. As a result, I had to fly extremely smoothly in that clip to avoid having any motion blur artifact. On to the fourth clip. The key issue was we were shooting during sunset and we did about 6 to 7 takes in a span of 30 minutes. And during sunset, the lighting conditions and the color of the light will change quite fast. And you don't really have the time to adjust and check your white balance between each take. So the best way to proceed, in my view, was to use automatic white balance. It is something that I usually don't do because it can create some quirky color shifts. However, in this particular case, I think it was the best decision. So now that we are done, one thing I would like to mention before we close out this video. During the shoot, we made the decision with Edwin to have a computer on the spot, to always unload the shoots, put them into the computer, stabilize them, and then show them to the client.
I would say like this one would be the most difficult because there's so many tight alley like returns.
You're gonna find it shaky? That's totally part of the process. The reason we did this is because for a client, it's really hard to understand what the final shot is going to look like when you're looking at, a standard GoPro fisheye look. Stabilizing the footage on the spot is not only great for the client, but also because you are 100% sure when you leave the set that the shots are good.
In like 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's like a
It's an S.
Yeah. You see the
slide on the left twice.
It's pretty cool.
And then go here.
I think the other issue is for people who haven't seen the building, they've only seen the outside.
Yeah.
They see this idea of this just T.
But we do see that in the first sequence. In the first sequence, we do
Yeah.
get that upper. So,
But I mean,
but this
that
is
depth
different.
thing is that whole depth
Sure.
going down.
We can even like put actors in there.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean that level of depth is quite nice, and if you can get that feeling of the people at different levels.
I think the key fear for an FPV drone pilot is to come home, take the footage, put it in the computer, and realize that there's a bug in Real Steady Go, that things just won't work. You won't be able to stabilize the footage, or even worse, that there is a corrupt SD card. So being able to process the footage on the spot was really a game changer for me. For that particular purpose, the M1 chip in the new MacBook Pro was amazing. It is so fast. With Real Steady Go, you are able to process your footage super quickly, and the whole team was super happy. So thank you guys for listening. It was a great experience. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. Bye-bye.